you check the children? You're a little mad sometimes.
Hi, I'm Chucky. Wanna play?
Sometimes. That is what
You're gonna need a bigger boat.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Horror Show. I'm Cecil Laird.
And you got Jaime and Fuego, yeah.
And we are here to do the first of our 3 end-of-the-year episodes. We always take until January to get them done because we're watching stuff all the way right up through the end of the year. Oh, yeah. And this is our first opportunity to record them. I'm not sure if we're going to get to record all of them today, but today we are going to be focusing on the top 10 horror movies that we saw in 2022 that released that year, or at least in the States. So, yeah.
There's obviously some that they have festival premieres beforehand. We don't get to catch them until they hit Shudder or, something of that nature. But, yeah, best of 22, man.
Exactly. And then the other lists we'll be doing are the most anticipated of 2023 and then the top horror TV of 2022 as well. So look forward to those lists. But I think without further ado, let's just jump right into this. I'm going to start off with my number 10, which was Phil Tippett's Mad God. So this one dropped on Shudder in the middle of the year, and this was a stop-motion animated movie by this gentleman, Phil Tippett, who's been working on it for a decade. I've seen everything from a decade up to 30 years, depending on where I read. But nonetheless, a very, very long time, and I can definitely see why, because the story of it is about this character, this kind of cloaked, masked character that is referred to as the assassin, and basically the assassin makes his way down into a really hellish landscape where there are creatures all over the place and slave creatures that are getting gobbled up by bigger creatures, and entities that have to sacrifice themselves to fuel whatever this crazy hellish machine that we don't even see all of, just massive pieces of it as the assassin is moving through the world. And quite frankly, the reason I'm putting it on my list is because it is just a amazing feat of filmmaking. The amount of work that it must have taken, the amount of attention to detail to make everything presented so beautifully grotesque. And not only that, but it was at times hard for me to sit through. It took me a couple of watches because it just made me uncomfortable, and I had to be in a very specific mood to be able to actually sit through it. So I was very impressed with this film. I don't know how often I'll revisit it for that that reason alone, but if you haven't seen it, definitely give it a try, because it is just, it's like a hour plus long, an hour and a half long old school Tool video, that's kind of what it came off. So yeah. That's my number 10.
Yeah, it was solid, man. I did enjoy it. It was a little thin on the narrative, which I think was one of the only things that, kept it out of my list. But it was at least up for consideration. And what a marvel just to look at, dude. It is a friggin' trip of a movie. So, glad you finally got it finished. Okay, so coming in at number 10 for me is something that I actually got to see at the International Horror and Sci-Fi Film Festival. Shout out to Monty Yazzie, who always programs a very interesting assortment of films. And this is one that I recommended to you. I don't know if you ever got around to seeing it. This is Crabs! ! And it is legitimately one of the goriest, goofiest films that I saw this year. The mutated crabs get progressively bigger as the film plays out to almost like ridiculous size at one particular point. We're talking like kaiju caliber sort of craziness. And it's got a fun surf rock theme song, lots of goofy humor throughout. And yeah, man, it was a blast. I'm glad that it finally got a VOD release a couple of months ago so more people can get the chance to check it out.
Yeah, as a creature fan, I do need to catch that for sure. I need to catch crabs. So, my number 9 is going to be Terrifier 2. So this one I'm putting on my list because I was very happy with it once I saw it. It really nailed what it was going for, and it was a singular watching experience for me. Robert and we reacted to the movie and recorded our reactions for the first time when we watched it. And it resulted in like a minute and a half of a bunch of us going, oh, and just like cursing and being like disturbed. And it was a really, like, that's what I want in a horror movie that I don't get that often, And Damien Leone absolutely killed it as the director. Again, he upped his game. I felt the story was more engaging. The acting was improved. Art the Clown, David Howard Thornton returned as a slasher that I fell in love with the first time around. And I've liked even since All Hallows Eve, but definitely Terrifier solidified him as one of my, I like slashers with personality. I always have. And so getting a second installment of Art the Clown, a second full-length installment of Art the Clown, I was very happy, and I was disturbed with the effects, and movies don't do that very much for me. So all of those reasons combined are why it made my list at number 9.
Yeah, it was an impressive film, man, and it had for me at least one of the best final girls that like emerging on the scene, and I can't wait to see what that actress does, going forward, and presumably in a third film, which Damien's already been teasing. So yeah, nice. So my number 9 is going to be a foreign film. I can't remember the specific country from Europe it's from, but it is Hatching. And this is a film that's kind of a dark folk fairy tale sort of thing almost. You've got this girl who is being pushed into gymnastics by her very just heavy-handed and demanding mother. And it also had some interesting family drama too, stuff that I found a little bit upsetting because there's some infidelity in the marriage and a few other things going down. But it's really the transformative process of this egg that this girl finds, and without spoiling what it eventually turns into, and the effectiveness of kind of the dual role that this young actress gets to play. I really dug this movie, and I still remember seeing the initial trailer, and I was like, okay, is it going to live up to at least my creature conceptions and whatnot? And it did. I thought it was damn good. Very impressive movie.
It was a really great creature movie that stuck with me as well. It actually was on my list until I remembered a movie that I had forgotten about, and I was like, oh wait, no, I need to put that on my list. And so Hatching got fried. So my number 8 is, I don't know how I'm ending each one of those with a little pun, but we'll see if I can continue it. The next one is my number 8, and that is going to be The Cursed. This was an early one we saw in the year. It was the lower budge vampire movie that was released digitally, or I'm sorry, werewolf movie that was released digitally, that had like a lot of lore inside of it. It had really cool effects, unique looking werewolf creatures. Like it wasn't my favorite kind of werewolf representation, but what it was unique and different. Had a really cool autopsy scene. I enjoyed the acting. I enjoyed the story. I said in our the subject line of our review, the best werewolf movie in years, ? And I think it is one of the best werewolf movies we've gotten in years. So The Cursed really impressed me, especially for the budget it was made on, and it was one that actually got made and then was noticed, right, and then had more money put into it to shoot more and make better. And honestly, I think the final product was amazing. So that's why it made my number 8.
Yeah, that's one that I saw at the festival circuit the previous year, and the version that they ended up retitling and releasing was significantly better, and I thought Boyd Holbrook was really good in it as well. So, Q. So let's jump to my number 8. This is the first of a number of different Shudder releases, and this is called Revealer. And this is another one of those 80s throwbacks, with regards to very synth-heavy score and stuff like that. But it's a very unique concept in the fact that essentially you have this she's basically like a nudie booth dancer of sorts, and there is a girl who has been protesting outside of this establishment countless times, and the two of them end up getting locked in this establishment as the world is ending, and it's like demons are essentially like taking over, and it's very low budget in the fact that like it's almost like a bunker type film, and I know you're not like the biggest into those, but it really shines in the dynamic between these two actresses and how they start out just absolutely hating each other's guts mutually, and the protester ends up admitting some things about herself and some of her own inclinations and stuff without spoiling things. And so it's really how their just forced sort of coexistence ends up becoming almost like a friendship of sorts. And I mean, very solid acting. There's some gunship in the film, which is always fun. And it's got one of my favorite endings of any horror film that I got to check out this year. So that is Revealer. Definite recommendation on Shudder from me.
Nice. I think I remember you telling us about that when you first watched it. That's one that definitely slipped away from me, so I'll have to re-add it. So
yeah.
That's going to bring me to my number 7, and this is one that people may be surprised that it wasn't higher for me, but I'm going to put Smile at my number 7. I really liked Smile a lot. I saw it with Marsha, and it's always fun to see a movie with Marsha that she gets into, because she's a screamer, and it's fun having someone like that next to you when you're watching a movie like this. But I was impressed with the execution of Smile. It really was, it kind of did better what Truth or Dare tried to do a couple of years prior. And not only that, the fact that it ends up, spoilers if anyone, skip ahead about 10 seconds, but the fact that it ends up being a creature movie ultimately, the reveal at the end is really cool. And so I was impressed with what I saw, enough so that I think it was worth putting at my number 7. I'm sure we're going to get a sequel, with considering how incredibly successful it was. It made $216 million on a $17 million budget. I mean, that's incredible, and there's no studio in Hollywood right now that could resist sequelizing that. But I'm on board for it, because it was really just like It Follows mixed with Truth or Dare, and I dug it. I really dug it. So yeah, Smile.
Yeah, it was the familiarity of this one that probably kept it out of contention for me. But I mean, the performance from that lead actress was undeniably really effective. So, cool. So my number 7, another Shudder release, and this is one I think that you saw. I can't recall from the spreadsheet, but this is Deadstream, and Deadstream is. Oh man, like the fact that guy, I believe, also wrote it and directed it, our main YouTube type star, who goes and locks himself in this home, and he's trying to do the whole "can I survive through the night" sort of bit. So yeah, definitely some familiar tropes, but it was just the sheer reverence of the Evil Deadisms in it that really just hit specifically. It lost a little bit of steam for me once this other character shows up, but I mean, besides that, it was so silly, and just some of the makeup and kind of transformative sort of stuff that they do with a few of these characters, and it's got the slapsticky, Army of Darkness, Evil Dead 2 vibe to it, not necessarily as serious as the original Evil Dead. So yeah, Deadstream, man, I had so much friggin' fun with that flick.
If all low budget horror movies that dealt with YouTubers and found footage and gore, if they all did it as well as Deadstream, I would be a happy boy, that's for sure. Going to my number 6, I am going to pull out a release from earlier in the year, I should say, from Hulu, and that is Fresh. So I really, really enjoyed this. This one starred, what's his name? Sebastian Stan? Yeah. The Winter Soldier. And he plays, ultimately, what turns out to be a psychotic cannibal that delights in his work, and he is a cultivator of meats for butchers. And it's all about, it starts off, you don't know that, of course, it starts off as a almost romantic comedy setup, and then things turn sinister when things make it back to his place, and this woman is kept captive by him, and he intends to start cutting off pieces for his business. And it turns out she finds out that she's not the only one that is being held captive, and what happens as the film progresses would be very spoilerific. So I'm going to go ahead and leave it there. But the performances were awesome. It's a genuinely fun horror movie that is equally disturbing as it is entertaining. So I really dig when movies can pull that off, and the acting has to be on point when it's such a small cast. So I really dug the hell out of what they did, and I really liked the resolution. So it was just a win all the way through for me.
Yeah, it's a lot higher on my list, actually. So I don't know if I should go into it right now or.
No, just wait. You can talk about it when you get to it on your list. Yeah.
Cool. Sweet. Okay, so number 6 for me is actually going to be, once again, there's a lot of Shudder on here. They are so just vigilant with their content, and this also has some similar DNA to Deadstream, because this is called Sissy, and this is an Australian film, if I'm not mistaken. But this is about an influencer girl who reconnects with her childhood best friend after just a random meeting in a grocery store, and gets invited to it's almost like a bridal shower sort of situation, and she ends up having to reconnect as well with a girl that bullied her when she was a kid, and also was instrumental in the fracturing of the friendship between the two other girls. And this one is it doesn't take itself supremely seriously, but it has so much viciousness to say about influencers and YouTubers, and just the self-centered nature of a lot of them. And this is not one that I want to spoil, because what this film ends up doing at about the halfway point, it totally changes trajectory. And uh, just the state of a character as it's revealed, why the other girl was bullying her, and why the friendship fragmented between the other two main girls. It gets pretty vicious, but it does play it for laughs, which I appreciate. And yeah, this is another one, man, that touched on some topics that hit a little close to home, I would say. So yeah, Sissy, man, I definitely dug it.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
Yeah, cool.
I did add that back to my list when you talked about it last time, so I'm excited to give it a try. So that's going to bring us to my number 5, and my number 5. It's amazing. My list is usually full of smaller movies like yours, but in all honesty, you guys, I just didn't have a lot of time this year to watch as much as I normally do, between Dylan's New Nightmare and me changing jobs and doing stuff like that, which is still kind of in process and everything. So it's been tough to watch as much as usual, so my list ends up being a little bit more mainstream this year. So number 5 for me is going to be another Hulu release, which is Hellraiser. I really liked the new Hellraiser that came out. I liked the approach. I liked it as a reboot. It doesn't negate anything that came before it, really. It's not a part of that necessarily continuity, but it's its own thing, and it does what it does really, really well. I think they evolved the lament configuration in a really cool way to give it so many different configurations now. I liked the main characters were a bit shallow, sure, and maybe not super interesting, but I still enjoyed everything around them, and I liked the way the story unfolded. I, of course, at the most liked the hell aspects. I liked the shout out to the Leviathan when we got it. I liked all of the Cenobites. I thought the creativity of the Cenobites was really cool, especially the empty-headed Cenobite, you might say. I thought that was freaking amazing, and I thought the imagination of twisting the skin instead of using leather to cover them was a really kind of brilliant way to do it, and show that they were, their clothing is actually torture to them, as well as their little, metal accoutrement that they may have, depending on which Cenobite it is. And I thought the new Pinhead was great. I thought, they sounded intimidating. I thought they did a great job with their performance, and I just really enjoyed that portrayal, the new portrayal. Of course, Doug Bradley will always have his place as the original Pinhead, and he absolutely killed it. But I thought that Jaime, I believe was her name, did a wonderful job. So Hellraiser, number 5.
Yeah, not on my list, because I did not like the characters, most notably the main girl. She just totally bugged the hell out of me. But from like a stylistic standpoint, I found it just really innovative and kick-ass. One of the better Hellraiser films, since we reviewed all of them recently. So.
Yep.
Cool. So number 5 for me is once again another Shudder. This is Hellbender, and this is one that had an interesting music spin to it, because you essentially have this teenage girl. She's living out in the woods with her mother, and it's a witch movie, but it very much just doesn't really reveal itself as being such until a little bit later, because the mother essentially has this girl not quite in captivity, but she's very deliberately keeping her out of like modern society. And when you find out that it's because of how powerful her daughter actually is, that's where it starts to really get fascinating. And they're in a band together, the mom and the daughter, and the original songs that they're playing, that's kind of like got a punk hardcore sort of vibe to it. And they're solid tunes, man. I enjoyed the musical aspect of it. When the daughter is starting to really just understand the true nature of her power, that's where the film gets especially interesting. And there's cool, almost like black corpse painty makeup going down with their stage presence and such. And so yeah, this is one that it melded a lot of my favorite things, because I do like witch movies actually, and yeah, the musical aspect worked for me as well. So yeah, Hellbender, man.
Cool. That's one I would actually check out too. So I'll have to add that back to my list.
Nice.
The next one for me is going to be a Joe Hill property that was turned into a film called The Black Phone. Right? This was one of his short stories, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep, from 20th Century Ghost. Yep.
Yeah, so I really liked this movie a lot. I thought that, our lead young man did an excellent job. And then Ethan Hawke did incredibly as the stranger wearing the Tom Savini masks. The Tom Savini masks were incredible in and of themselves. The story played out really cool, and I found myself invested so much that when the kid was finally going to try and escape towards the end, I was really intently on the edge of my seat, enjoying what was happening. I thought it played out tremendously. I thought the way it resolved with the voices on the phone was really cool and satisfying. And, I really dug the little sister. She was a cool little actress that had some amazing line deliveries in the film. And I liked the fake out at the end when the cops kind of go to the wrong house, and then it plays out the way that it does. So it was just a really excellent thriller that obviously dips into the horror side of things and everything, and I enjoyed the hell out of it. So yeah, that's why it made my number 4.
Yeah, it so narrowly didn't make my list because I had a blast with this movie. I thought both of the brother and sister were excellent in it, and Ethan Hawke, to see him, play a deranged psychopath was just great. So I'm hopeful that this just opens the door for more Joe Hill adaptations in the future. So, cool. All right, so my number 4 is, dare I say, maybe the most disturbing film that I watched this year, but it's because of the subject matter, which you really don't want to divulge, and it is a Blumhouse film called Soft and Quiet. It's not streaming on any of the Primes or Shutters or whatever, so it is a VOD rental that you have to go about. But it's about a bunch of like-minded women, as the description gives it, and they have this little meetup at this church, and as it starts to reveal itself and what these women are actually into, that's where you're just holy shit. My jaw dropped as the reveal happens about 10-15 minutes into it. And from a stylistic standpoint as well, it's really impressive because they make it all look like one shot. So the 1922 sort of vibe where it looks like it is just a camera following throughout. And so I'm not sure if they just through camera tricks or whatever, did one continuous shot, but it sure fooled me, man, as I would imagine that just, I don't know, the amount of rehearsal and everything that would be necessary to actually pull off what this movie does as it develops and as it gets darker over the course of it. And this isn't anything supernatural, but it's just based on subject matter. Once again, it's one of the most disturbing things that I think I watched all year. So yeah, Soft and Quiet.
Nice. Okay.
Yeah.
That's one I'll probably skip.
yeah, nothing supernatural, just evil real people sort of bit. So yeah.
So that's going to bring me to my number 3, and this one was apparently, surprisingly to me, more divisive than I thought it would be. But Jordan Peele's Nope is my number 3. I really enjoyed this movie when I saw it. I still need to get it on Blu-ray and give it a rewatch, but I know it's on a streaming service, so I don't need to jump to do that immediately. But I enjoyed the hell out of his take on an alien visitation movie. When it is revealed what the movie actually is, again, trying to avoid spoilers in case anyone hasn't seen this movie, but when it's revealed what kind of movie it is an alien movie, clearly, but it's a certain type of, it's another kind of movie as well, and it's one of my favorite, it is my favorite subgenre of horror, so if you know me, you know what I'm saying. But the way it played out was incredible. I thought the acting was great, from Keke Palmer to Stephen Yeun to our lead, which I can't think of, what was our lead? Daniel Kaluuya. Yep. Yep. And I just enjoyed everything about this movie except for the very, very end, the way the alien is taken out. But, you know, upon thinking back and watching a few videos about the movie, I now understand more why that choice was made, and I'm more okay with it. So I really just enjoyed this movie, and I thought the filmmaking was incredible, and yeah, just all around very enjoyable experience for me. And as some people are thinking, some people have said that the chimpanzee bit of the movie kind of felt out of place to them, but I didn't feel so. Like, I understood what they were saying with it, and I enjoyed that aspect in its own thrilling way. So yeah, I really loved Nope.
Yeah, I didn't love it upon first watch, although I did check it out a couple weeks ago when it hit Peacock, because that's the streamer that it's on right now, and I did appreciate it significantly more, but I do still contend that it's my least favorite of his 3 movies thus far, but it's not bad. And I mean, it brings the humorous aspect, and I do especially like that one transitionary scene for what happens with all those people. It still might be one of the most disturbing things I've seen on screen all year, is that sequence in particular. So,
yeah, it's great.
yeah. Okay, so number 3 for me, and all 3 of these in, you know, my 1 through 3, I had such a tough time narrowing who was going to be the front runner, but I guess number 3 for me is going to be The Menu, and it's definitely more of the thriller comedic sort of thing than anything full-blown horror. But Anya Taylor-Joy, star turn, terrific. Nicholas Hoult, I believe, who plays the kind of love interest of hers in it, he is delightfully just squirmy, douchey, wormy, yeah. And Ralph Fiennes, I always mispronounce his last name, unfortunately.
Ray Fiennes,
okay, yeah. Man, he is exceptional in this movie, and I love my dark comedic thriller sort of things like this, and once this is another one where the previews don't quite give away what happens in about the second act of this film, and when things start to get revealed about what's going to transpire at this very, very posh exclusivist dinner party, it's so hilarious, man, and so just delightfully dark. And something that happens at the very, very end with the Anya Taylor-Joy character, and a request that she makes of Ray. It's or Ralph Ray. I'm butchering it once again, but yeah, our main chef, who has just so celebrated and stuff, and her request is one of my favorite sequences that I saw in a movie, because of just what it invokes within his character is just pricelessly entertaining. So yeah, The Menu, it's great.
I finally caught it last night because it literally dropped on HBO Max yesterday, and I had not seen it yet, and I really enjoyed it too. It didn't crack my top 10, but I was very glad to have seen it, and it is one that I would watch again, because it's a unique kind of film. So I really dug it, and the acting, like you said, was tremendous. So
Anya Taylor-Joy, man, just great in everything she does.
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
Cool.
All right, so my number 2 is going to be Ty West's X. This was the first in the X trilogy, or whatever they're calling it, because he also released in the same year Pearl, which also did not crack my top 10 list, even though I really greatly enjoyed it, but I enjoyed X way more. X is just a straight throwback to old school slashers, and it's dealing with a group of filmmakers that happen to be pornographic filmmakers, but they're kind of, you know, first timers a little bit, and it's really entertaining. The characters are all drawn really well, and the acting is phenomenal. The gore is really cool, and the baddies are sort of an unexpected from an unexpected source, and I think the uniqueness of the movie, plus the absolute gorgeous filmmaking of it, all of that combines into what made my number 2 favorite movie of this year. It was fantastic, and I can't wait to see what the third part of the trilogy holds in store for us. Hopefully, I mean, if he got 2 movies together for this year, I'm hoping he can do another one for next year. So
yeah, with Maxine.
Or this year, I guess now.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I'm going to talk about that one in a moment, but
sorry.
my number 2 is going to be Fresh, which you touched upon. Sebastian Stan is like the fact that he goes from like the bumbling, awkward sort of just to when he starts to reveal what he's actually up to. And also Daisy Edgar Jones is terrific in this, and just the way she just starts to manipulate him and is trying to concoct her means of escape. One of the only things that I didn't like so much about it was like the assistance from the friend and just the I don't know, certain conveniences about it. But this movie was so delightfully dark and deliciously disgusting when you find out what it's really about. And I guess the poster most definitely implies consumption of a specific sort of flesh. But I mean, it's just an excellent movie, man. Hulu really knocked it out of the park with this one, and yeah, I just loved Fresh.
Yeah, me too.
Thanks.
So yeah, that's going to lead to my number one, and that's going to be one. I don't know if this is going to surprise you guys or not, but I really loved and made number one Prey, which was another Hulu release.
So it was so close on making mine too.
Yeah, 3 Hulu releases made my top 10 list this year, and you know, 2 of the 3 were you know, kind of returns to, not kind of, but were returns to older franchises. And Prey is just kind of how Predator should be done, in my opinion. Like, I think that Predator would work best, and I'm not the only person that said, you know, has this opinion. A lot of people have said this, but I think Predator works best. But again, we have comics, so we know, you know, how it's worked in the comics, and this is how it would be if you take the Predator and just put them into different eras on Earth, right? If they've been hunting for thousands of years across the galaxy, and they've been to Earth before, now we see that this was supposed to be their first time to Earth, you know, when there was, you know, Native Americans just sort of cruising around, and they did such a good job with this, with the story of the main you know, woman Native American character, or what it's, I don't know what
is it Comanche?
Comanche, yes, exactly. Yeah, thank you. As the Comanche warrior, or wannabe Comanche warrior, who's just out to try and prove herself, but it's still a very male centric, you know, situation, as it was kind of all over back in the day. But the Predator itself was so awesome, and the design was amazing, and it was intimidating. The movie itself actually had like different frames that looked almost exactly out of a comic book, and it was gory when it needed to be. It did cut away a couple times, but it wasn't afraid to show the gore, because there was actually tons of gore too. So it was all around exactly what I love in a good Predator movie. I think definitely the best since the first 2, and maybe the best since the first. So I don't know. I would revisit this before I'd revisit 1 or 2, because I have them in my whole head at this point. So, but it's the only one of these movies that I watched twice this year. So I gotta say that speaks volumes for me, because I have so much to watch and so much to do that rewatching something feels like a waste of time to me most times. As I told you when you said, "Oh, I saw Avatar in IMAX and it was better, not as many frame rate issues," and I'm like, great, yeah, but I'm not going to waste another 3 hours on it. So that's just the way of it. But Prey, I did not mind taking the time to watch again. So absolutely why it's my number one.
Yeah, and also Prey being like half the length of that Avatar film, I mean,
that
it's
helps.
a little bit easier to make the time for. Yeah, if this was a bigger list, it definitely would have been on there for me. It lost a little bit of momentum when they brought in the fur trappers, and so maybe that was what you know, pushed it a little further back. But yeah, definitely a return to form for sure. Well, my number one, you just talked about it. It's X. This movie was throwback in the most delightful possible way, but the fact that it did go for gore, the fact that it did have so much more to say about the nature of aging, and, you know, just the tragedy that is loss of beauty as somebody grows older. And yes, it was a little silly at times, but that's why I had so much fun with it. And I mean, I love me a goth. I can't wait to see what they do with Maxine, so that's going to be cool. But it had a few of my most just like fist bumping theater moments, most notably something that happens with Jenna Ortega's character, where I was just like, what? And just amused, enthused. And Ty West, man, I mean, he veered into television for a little while, but I'm very, very stoked that he is taking his talents back to the big screen, because both films were really good, but I thought X was a lot better personally. So yeah, that's my number one of the year, X.
Right on. So there you go, guys. That is our top 10 horror movies of 2022. Let us know what you think of our lists. They're wildly different except for 2 movies. So that's pretty cool. That doesn't usually happen. But yeah, I'm curious to know what your guys' best movies of 2022 were in the horror genre. So if you're so inclined, let us know what they were in the comments down below. Give us your thoughts on our choices. Are either of us crazy? I'm sure some people will take a couple of mine and think I'm nuts, but I just really enjoyed those films. So let's get that conversation going in the comments down below. Thank you to all of our patrons for supporting the channel the way that you do. We greatly appreciate it. Until next time, though, I've been Cecil Laird.
And Kristopher Jaime Fuego.
And remember, stay scared.